Niagara-on-the-Lake celebrated Canada 150 in style this past weekend with a number of activities on land and water. A day after a major concert at Butler's Barracks, two tall ships docked at River Beach Drive drew crowds as well.
We're really pleased to see the fantastic turnout initially, but we have no idea how many people are coming overall.
How did this opportunity present itself?
That's an interesting question. I'm a historic narrator on the Niagara Belle, the ship, and the captain spoke to me and mentioned that rendezvous for these tall ships to come into various ports on Lake Ontario. So that's when we tried to figure out if we could schedule Niagara-on-the-Lake along with the other ports that they're visiting. And fortunately, there was this little window for us for these two ships, and we were really lucky to be able to get them.
The two ships Tony is referring to are the Dennis Sullivan from Wisconsin and the Mist of Avalon from Nova Scotia. The two ships spent most of last summer doing events together and are once again docked side by side.
We came from Hamilton and we actually sailed off the dock in Hamilton. The wind was just perfect and we sailed all the way across the harbor and we literally sailed all the way across last night. It was just a really beautiful, calm night. Well, she is a replica of a traditional Great Lakes schooner, a typical schooner from the era 1850s, and the last one was sailing as a cargo schooner until 1930s, actually. And being a replica, she's very modernized inside, and the materials are all modern, but the sailing aspect is identical. The way they sail the boats back then is the same way we sail the Dennis Sullivan now.
Could you let us in on a little bit of the ship's history?
Yeah, it was built in, it's 50 years old actually this year, so it's 50th anniversary. Built in 1967 in Nova Scotia, and it was actually built as a fishing vessel originally, without masts, without rigging. It was a motor vessel, but it was built with a sailing hull. So yeah, so it was built with a sailing hull, even though it was a motor vessel, and then it was converted in the 90s by the previous owner to what more or less what it is today.
Ontario 150 funding allowed organizers to install a temporary dock for the two ships. The town threw their support behind the initiative with upgrades to the park and parking area on Melville Street. And of course, the volunteer spirit of Niagara-on-the-Lake made a huge impact as well.
We've been very, very fortunate to get 45 volunteers who have all got our blue shirts on and helping people in the lineups and working for security, for Transport Canada instructions, and we couldn't do it without them. It's been a super help with the fencing. There's been a million and one little details, but I think we're finally ready to go, and this is just a few minutes before the gates open.
Organizers hope that the ships will serve as a reminder of the town's proud nautical history.
This was a common sight 180 years ago. Schooners were in fact actually built here in Niagara-on-the-Lake, but cargo schooners like the Dennis Sullivan that we have were a regular sight here. And it was an exciting moment when they came into to dock. People would rush from town and come down to see the ships come in. So it's a very important part of the history and heritage of Niagara-on-the-Lake to have these two ships here. And it's a great privilege to be able to arrange for that for everybody, whether they're visiting the town or whether they're local people.
In Niagara, you're watching The Source.